Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we are jumping into a beer from Adroit Theory, another one of my favorite brewers that I discovered through Tavour. Been a while since I've had one of theirs. This today is called Scarification. It is a double dry hopped Hazy Imperial IPA, clocking in at 8% ABV. They specifically state on the can, brewed and canned by Adroit Theory, Washington, D.C. They are based in Purcellville, Virginia. That's in Loudoun County, a couple counties to the west of the District of Columbia. But they obviously have expanded over the years and they have a few different brewing locations. This one in Washington, D.C. They do, as always, give us a ton of information about their beers, suggest some pairings. So critically, this being an IPA, they do us a solid and they give us their hop bill. Mosaic, Galaxy, Ella, Eldorado, and Sultana. So this is going to be a fun beer for me. Ella hops, I maybe have had a beer with a minute, but it was unbeknownst to me. So knowing the hop bill and knowing that there's Ella in this one is going to be a fun little test of the senses to see what aromas, especially mixed with these other big hop varieties and flavors, I can pick out that I'm experiencing. Sultana I've had in one or two, but not too many. So this is a nice mix of hops. I don't know the alpha acid content of Ella or Sultana, but Mosaic certainly, Galaxy for sure, and Eldorado to an extent. Pretty high alpha acid content hops. So it'll be interesting to see how they use them. As always, they give us some pairings here. For food, I will do my best to read this well. Barbecue brisket with pickled fennel. That actually sounds awesome. That would actually go well with an IPA. Cheese, they say Vacarin, Fribourgeois. Is that an F? Sorry, I need new glasses. It's hard to read. I think it's called Vacarin Fribourgeois. Presume that's a French cheese. Cigar, they suggest Protocol Probability Cause. And they even give you some music suggestions. I'm not going to go quite that far. That is completely subjective. But Scarification, this is the label art. They always do really cool label art on their cans. This is no exception. Pretty neat. But let's get this cracked. We're going to be using one of our nice all-purpose Sam Adams glasses. It won't hold the whole beer, but it does great for IPAs. This nice big tulip on it. Gently, gently. There we go. All right, let's get this poured. That should have no problem forming a head, so I'm going to back it off and give it a little space. Slow it down, be a little more gingerly. Yeah, that had no problem at all forming a head. That is one thing I got to say, the Sam Adams glass, just the way that it's shaped, it does a really great job at helping beers form nice heads. Just part of the design in the glass, they're fantastic. You can get these online from their shop. You can also find them for sale at, I got like a 4 set. Years ago at Target. They're fantastic. I love these glasses. Big aroma already coming off of this beer. It's just poured. The head formed thickly. It's kicking up tons of aromatics in the air, and it does smell amazing. So let's take a visual check. This is a true bright golden yellow color. This is the exact hue I picture in my head when I think of an IPA. They can run the gamut, but this is that true classic deep bright golden yellow color. And yes, they say it's hazy. I would agree with that assessment. It is occluded. In terms of carbonation, this one's going quite active. Has just a big, thick stream of super fine champagne-like bubbles and some medium ones kind of coming off the sides of the glass. So that obviously contributed to this nice head formation, and it does look lovely and thick and creamy. We're going to get right up over it for a proper sniff. Okay, yeah. There's a lot happening in the aroma here. So the first thing I noticed was citrus. The second thing that I noticed was actually a little twinge of pine and resin. That, I'm guessing, is coming straight from the Galaxy hops, rather known for it. And there is a mix of kind of floral accents, earthy accents, and even some kind of tropical fruit aromas. So this beer with this hop bill seems to kind of have every range of the normal spectrum of aromas you're going to get from varying hops. Smells like a mix of grapefruit, orange, lemon, lime. It's got pineapple, passion fruit, guava. It's got pine, it's got resin, it's got earthy notes, and almost like fresh cut flowers, this floral aroma. It's got everything. Everything is present in the aroma in this glass. It's very pungent, and it smells absolutely fantastic. And I gotta say, balance we normally think about in terms of taste, but the aroma balance on this is phenomenal. Like, none of these aromas are vying for attention. They're all very clear. They all have their own aromatic voice, and it really is quite nice. It's been a while since I've smelled an IPA like that, and it really gets me excited to see what this tastes like. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Oh yeah, that's delicious. Wow. Oh, that is very, very tasty beer. Very tasty beer indeed. And the bitters kind of come in on the back end. I got like a little kick there that I didn't anticipate. Okay, so the first thing, let's talk about the body and the mouthfeel. The body on this one to me feels kind of medium light. It's not super heavy. It's definitely less robust than I expected for an 8% IPA. Whether or not you classify that Imperial as they do or have a different opinion on the matter, that's where the ABV is. It doesn't feel as weighty as an 8% IPA. The mouthfeel, on the other hand, definitely has a good bit of resistance. I would say it feels really, maybe even slightly more resistant than your average 8% IPA would fall in the spectrum. It really does have a nice bit of resistance to it. Agitation, really all you can do on this one is just feel that resistance very clearly. This one doesn't get creamy, foamy, silky. It doesn't get bubbly, nothing like that. But you can really feel the resistance on it. So mouthfeel-wise, it's a lot bigger than the weight of it. The body of it is not quite as heavy. But the mouthfeel, there is a lot of resistance here. It's very nice. So that hits me even a little more impressive than expected. Well above average to be certain. I would say that's top tier for this ABV range. So in terms of the flavor profile, essentially almost every element that you get in the aroma profile does make its presence known in the flavor profile as well. I gotta say, it does lean a little bit on the kind of citrus and the tropical fruit side in terms of pungency of the flavor profiles, but there is indeed an underlying earthiness to it. A slight bit of that floral nature as well does make its way in the flavor profile. You don't often get that in an IPA, but it does happen here. And it's on the front side, and it's really kind of taking a back seat to that citrus and tropical fruit dominant side. In terms of kind of the pine and resin, that's more aromatic. There was just the tiniest hint on that first sip, but there was a lot of sensory overload happening on this one between the big, bold, pungent aromas and these big in-your-face flavors. This will absolutely take a second jump in to pick this apart, let everything re-intensify, see what else I pick out on second sip, make sure I don't miss anything, and then we'll talk about the finish. But on first sip, I love it. This is a great beer. So take two. Citrus, tropical fruit, floral. Florals underneath in tier order of intensity, it's citrus, then tropical fruit, then floral. And it's slightly different ratios, but that's what hits you first. Then comes earthy at about the 3-second mark. Around the 5-second mark, you get this little twinge of this resinous piney. It's just a little twinge, and then it quickly gets out of the way, and kind of the earthy underpinnings intensify, and they start really binding with that citrus edge and that tropical fruit edge. So that's almost what you're left with. Tropical fruit, citrus, and earthiness, all blending together. And it's really about that 5-second mark when that twinge of pine comes in that you really get that little extra boost of bitters, because it doesn't taste particularly bitter up front. It takes a few seconds. Then after that initial intensity settles down, these others come up and start to commingle. That's when the bitters actually become apparent. And it's not a super bitter beer. It's not supposed to be. It's a hazy, it's a double. It's already got the hazy style, that whole New England thing where they're focusing more on flavor and aroma characteristics of the hops than the bittering profile. And yes, that can be true, including hops that are high alpha acid content, such as these, Mosaic, Galaxy, and Eldorado to an extent in particular. Ella, I'm not sure. Sultana, I haven't had enough exposure. So in this beer, I would almost have to guess that the slight floral accents are coming from those Ella hops. I've had enough Mosaic, Galaxy, and Eldorado to know that they don't tend to produce these kind of floral aroma or flavor accents in a beer. Sultana tends to be somewhere between that citrusy and that earthy side. In my experience, I haven't had a ton of exposure to it, but I've had it in a few beers, and I certainly don't remember any floral accents in those. So it'd be nice to see maybe a brewer just use single hop and kind of throw one of these little more obscure hop varieties, such as Ella or Sultana, to really let us see what those hops are exactly about. Sure, I could research it, but when I read the hop bill, I said, this is going to be a fun little test for me to see what I can pick out. It is fun. That's part of the fun of getting to jump into all these different beers and just honing that palate, honing that nose, seeing exactly what you can pick out. That's a part of the fun of it, but I absolutely love it. So in terms of, bitter intensity on this one, it's not intensely bitter. The kick of the bitters surprises you because it's so not bitter, and then it actually comes in. I would guess, at least my perception of the IBUs, maybe 20, possibly 25. And it's only for a couple of seconds and it really kind of backs off, and it's very, very mild bitters. Very mild bitters. It's not a bitter intense beer. If you don't like bitter IPAs, this is one I would recommend to you all day long. If you're just getting into IPAs and you don't drink a lot of bitter things, you don't take your coffee black, you don't take tea without sugar, like this would be something I would recommend to kind of get you into what the style's about. Slow stepping stones upward, but it's absolutely delicious. They have crafted a very, very nice beer here with a ton of layers, both in terms of that aroma and in terms of that flavor profile. It's absolutely delicious. So the finish on this one, it's not super long. I would say it's kind of bordering on the lower edge of average. It's, it is what it is. Without the driving impetus of the bitters from the hops, which they were not focused on this, you're really never in an IPA, in most cases, gonna get a super long finish, and that's true here. So without those really intense bitters driving it out, it just finishes nice and cleanly. And I don't mean truncated, I don't mean dry. It's wet and round to the end. It's just when it's finally gone, it's gone. There's no lingering on the back of the palate of any kind of flavor sensation, certainly no lingering big bitters in your face. It's just a well done beer. It's very refreshing. It's incredibly aromatic, deliciously flavorful, multifaceted. This is a great beer. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get this one ranked from top to bottom. All right, so now we're going to get this beer ranked. This was Adroit Theory's Scarification, a double dry hopped Hazy Imperial IPA, clocking in at 8% ABV. Adroit Theory is based in Purcellville, though this one was brewed at their Washington, D.C. facility. So starting with the aroma on this one had a big hop bill, some of which I was unfamiliar with up to this point, but the aromas were absolutely massive, and every one of the typical hop aroma profiles that you could find in a hop was present in this beer. And it was also balanced even in the aroma. That's quite rare, but it was absolutely phenomenal. The aroma does get a perfect 10 out of 10. For the taste on this was equally as layered and complex as the aroma profile. And indeed, virtually all of the major hop kind of flavoring areas were present, and they were really quite balanced as well. The flavor on this was really, really tremendous. This was not a very bitter beer, which that's really by design. It's a Hazy Imperial. It's realistically not going to be. They were clearly focusing on extracting aroma and flavor, and they succeeded with flying colors. I mean, it was just absolutely phenomenal. Layers of citrus moving into floral, into tropical fruit, nice underlying earthiness, even pine and resin notes. The taste does get a 10 out of 10. For the body The body on this beer was really not super heavy. It was actually quite a bit lower than I expected for the ABV. Really, it was just hovering in the low end of average range for the style and the ABV. Body does get a 4 out of 10. For the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel was a completely different story. Texturally, this had a lot of resistance, and it really felt appropriate for the ABV, and also helped kind of offset that lighter body. So the mouthfeel on this one does get a 10 out of 10. For the finish on this wasn't particularly long at all. It wasn't a very bitter pungent beer. Again, I suspect that's by design, but without those intensity of bitters that will linger on the palate, the finish is never going to be super duper long. This was really low end of average. Finish gets a 4 out of 10. For the head and retention, this one did a phenomenal job, formed a thick creamy head, stuck around the whole time. It does get a 10 out of 10. For the appearance, this was very much that textbook color that I picture when I think of an IPA, and this was a hazy. It did have occlusion. The appearance does get a perfect 10 out of 10. For the balance on this beer was absolutely top notch. The grain bill they chose, the hops, the ratio of the hops in particular, they absolutely nailed, and it made for a phenomenal, very, very aromatic and very, very flavorful beer. I think they nailed the balance. Balance gets a 10 out of 10. Feeling in the intangible, subjectively, I love this one. This was a really well put together beer that had tons of layering, and to get it just right and let everything speak like that, they did a tremendous job. Subjectively, feeling in the intangible gets a 10 out of 10. Finally, is an example of the style. Overall, I thought this was a very well done beer. It lost a couple categories with some pretty big points, just low end of average. That did drag the score down a bit. But in the grand scheme, it wasn't anything too terribly important to impact drastically the example score, because I really do think this is a very well put together Hazy Imperial double dry hopped IPA here, and they really did a great job. Example of this style does get an 8 out of 10, which brings the total score on Adroit Theory's Scarification to an 86 out of 100. So yeah, this is a well above average beer. If you're a fan of kind of the hazy IPA or New England style IPAs, this is one you're absolutely gonna love. It is just packed full of aroma and flavor, tons of layering, everything beautifully balanced, and it's one of those that's not super, super bitter. So if you don't really like bitter beers or bitter IPAs, this is one that absolutely I would recommend all day long. Absolutely well crafted, phenomenal, really delicious, and just packed with layers and layers. I can't overstate that enough. The aroma layering, I was already impressed. Then when I got into the flavor profile, discovered it was all in the flavor as well and balanced. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. This was absolutely top tier. I would recommend this to any fan. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.